Alrighty. So there's 7 questions, so we'll start off with number 1.
Arbitrary, but okay.
Yeah. How would you describe the difference between local and native food?
Okay, so native food is indigenous to the area and tends to grow ephemerally, so it will grow according to the season's rainfall and may react more to climate than weather. So it's something that grows without interference by mankind generally, humankind perhaps I should say. Local can include foods that aren't indigenous to the area but tend to grow well in the area. For example, cherries at Cherry Garden, so called because apples and cherries grow really well there. Its rainfall and its terrain is very similar to where they would have been grown originally. So some things adapt well or are imported and adapt well, so they may grow well locally, like grapes in the Barossa, but they're not indigenous to that area.
Yeah. Cool. Do you think it's important to use local and native products in everyday cooking? Do you use these products with like classes or by yourself?
Yeah, that's a good question. Do I think it's important? It probably is important because I do make the effort to use indigenous foods when I'm teaching. Less so at home. Sometimes they're expensive or hard to source, and I generally only use them for a special occasion, or if I was wanting to make something that someone liked, or I work up in Renmark sometimes, and I use a lot of their indigenous foods to the area if I'm doing a cooking display or something like that. My husband comes from the Riverland, and there's a lot of fruits and things that are indigenous on bush tomato chutneys, and red ochre was established up there, so it's quite a big industry up there. Sorry, that's a very long-winded way of answering your question.
That's all right.
I think it is important to acknowledge them, to keep the knowledge alive. I'd like to see them become more mainstream, more everyday. There's a really good place at Marion where you can get some things more easily nowadays. I like to use some of the native herbs and spices because it has a different profile if I'm in my cooking.
Yeah. How often do you think you'd use like native and local products with your classes? Say like over a span of a year maybe, just like often, not so often.
We always try to source locally grown foods, so they're often seasonal. And if our recipes, say if we run a recipe 4 times a year, we'll make adjustments to it according to season. So I'd say we always cook with that in mind. So I'd say it's a weekly consideration for locally grown, but not indigenous foods. We do that when we have units that use specialist foods. For example, we'll do a wattle seed ice cream quite frequently because it is a standalone thing that's delicious because it's delicious, not because it's specifically indigenous. Whereas a lot of the other things, lemon aspen and things, we use frequently. So that's, I can't be specific because some things we do use all the time.
Yeah,
but
it
other
really
things
depends on like the thing you're using. Yeah. Well, that's actually helpful because the next question is, are there any assignments like you give your classes to educate your students on local and native foods?
Yep, we include that in every year level, in every unit. So that's, part of what we're required to teach is an awareness per subject area. So it might be language and English, it might be customs and global studies, and for us it's Indigenous customs, foods and ingredients. And we try to incorporate that as much as we can, not just as a tokenistic thing, but as an integral part of the course.
Yeah, just going back to what you said earlier as well, like about how it's kind of hard to find different Indigenous foods. Would you know how like available they are to the public, or like if you were going, like if you didn't know where you were trying to find something, like it'd be quite hard to like locate a certain thing, like say like you didn't know.
So like Davidson's plum and things like that are becoming more mainstream, you can get it's a bit hit and miss. So my local, we have a cold store in Blackwood, Hawthorne Dean area, and they source all of those things, so it's not difficult for me. But I stumbled across that. So if you're actually going to be shopping for that, it's a lot more difficult. However, with Google, everything is it's easy to find. But you might have to travel. Some supermarkets stock some of the more basic things. Yeah, and our local Bunnings has Warrigal spinach seedlings, for example.
Yeah. So it's like slowly starting to become.
It's slowly becoming part of a mainstream conversation.
Yes. Yeah. I personally think it's like important that everyone uses local and native products in their like everyday cooking. How successful do you think a cookbook would be with like local and native ingredients incorporated?
I think it'd be really successful because it's a progression from looking at it as a tokenistic thing. Let's look at this now, separate to real life food. If you can weave it into real life food, I think it'd be really successful. And if people see it and say, "Oh yeah, I can do that."
Yeah, just sort of breaking it down and making it a lot easier to use.
Even if it's as small and insignificant as stocking native mint and including that in your recipe. You know, small steps. And when you see how easy it is, it's really good to do.